Well, hello and welcome to In the Growth Space. I'm David McGlennon. I'm your host. Really grateful that you're here with me. I say that all the time, but I really mean it. Every time you choose to listen, I'm super grateful. And today's episode is a little bit of a different episode, and I'll tell you why here in just a moment. But if you've been a listener for a little while, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please go out and subscribe. But more importantly, if you would also just give us a rating and maybe one or two sentences in a review of what this podcast has helped you with. If there's an episode that has been an impactful episode, or maybe a takeaway that has been really meaningful to you, it would really be meaningful to us and really helpful to hear that. So oftentimes, I was just telling someone the other day that when I'm recording these intros and sometimes even recording the solo episodes, it's so hard because I don't get feedback and I don't hear the feedback or the ahas and the takeaways. And so hearing that would be just really impactful for us and meaningful for us here at the In the Growth Space podcast. So today's episode is a bit different, as I mentioned, and it really is all about raising awareness for an organization and also a disease. So I have with me today Lynzy Groves, who is the Senior Development Manager at the Alzheimer's Association in the Greater Pennsylvania chapter. She's located right here in Pittsburgh. And we do talk a lot about Pittsburgh and the Pittsburgh chapter, but the Alzheimer's Association is a national organization, and they, as you'll hear, they have affiliations with sister organizations throughout the globe. This association and this disease is something that, as leaders, it impacts us all. It impacts us, as you'll hear in the statistic, 1 in 6 people are affected by this disease. And so I wanted to raise awareness. I wanted just to be able to give you an awareness lift, as it were, to be able to help you understand some of the dynamics of what the impact of this disease is and how you might get involved to help. There's a lot of information that we cover here in this episode. And I really hope that you'll listen with an ear to have just really radical generosity. Generosity with your time, generosity with your heart, especially if you have someone in your life or in your care, in your charge that as a leader that is affected by Alzheimer's. And so this is a really special episode, and I am really delighted to be able to have this conversation with Lynzy. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into that conversation right now. Well, hey, Lynzy, I am so glad to have you here on the podcast in the Growth Space. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. You know, one of the things that we were talking just off camera before we started, just the reasons why I wanted to have you on the podcast is because so many times as leaders, we know that our people are going through things, and sometimes they don't share them with us, sometimes they do, but when they go through things, it's oftentimes we want to come alongside them and give them some help, give them support. And I know with you being with the Alzheimer's Association, I wanted to bring this disease and this topic to our audience, because I think as leaders, we need to know about it. Because one of the things that you shared with me in our time that we had in the coffee shop was that 1 in 6 people are affected by this disease. And I mean, that's astonishing to me. And so I'd just love to have you talk a little bit about, you know, the disease and really how do we as leaders begin to like maybe pay attention, and, you know, how do we help our people with dealing with a diagnosis or maybe a family member who has a diagnosis?
Yeah, sure. And I'm guessing, and the Alzheimer's Association staff would probably agree with this as well. There are probably many, many more. There are not many folks that I know that aren't personally impacted, myself included, every single person that works in our office and beyond. So,
Mm,
unfortunately, it's just a growing problem that we have to address somehow. A
mm,
lot of the time, though, we don't really think about it as a younger person's disease, or how
mm.
does this actually impact the workforce? Because usually it impacts people over the age of 65.
Mm.
Ideally, we hope we're retired by then, right?
Yeah,
So
right. Yeah.
it's not really a workplace problem if you think about it in that frame. But we're seeing more and more generation especially is affected because they're caring for their children, they're going to work every day, they're potentially caring for a loved one that maybe has Alzheimer's or a form of dementia, Alzheimer's
Mhm,
being the most common form of dementia, um, among other diseases that are an issue in today's society.
mm,
But we're seeing people leaving the workforce over this, having tardies, having to leave early just to take
mhm,
people to appointments. And unfortunately, that caregiver that's stuck in the middle, their health is negatively impacted as well. So when we reframe our thought process
uh,
behind the workplace in general, and knowing that 6 in 10 individuals that are caregivers were employed in the last calendar year.
mm,
So
yeah.
6 out of our 10 individuals are working 35 hours per week and then going home and caring for their loved ones. So
Wow.
they really don't get a day off ever, even if they're
Mm,
taking their time off. So as employers, we have to really think about, do we want to lose our top talent to this disease? And to piggyback on that, unfortunately, the age is decreasing with rates of early onset across the board. So we're seeing individuals as young as 40, even below. I know
wow.
I have met families that had an individual that was 29 years old
Oh
that
my
was
goodness.
diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So
Wow.
unfortunately, it's a growing problem, and it's
Mm,
not going anywhere for the time being.
yeah. How do let's just take, leaders and employers, how do they best support people that maybe they have shared, with a leader, hey, my mom's going through, she just had an Alzheimer's diagnosis, or there's a dementia diagnosis. What are some of the ways that, we can support our people in that journey?
Number one, start the conversation. A
Yeah,
lot
that's
of the
good.
times, especially in the more rural communities or
Mm,
the minority communities, we just don't talk about it. So
yeah.
if we can't talk about it, there's really nothing that we can do as leaders to help
Mm-hmm,
our staff or our um, constituents or our clients or anything.
mm-hmm,
So when you think about the grand scheme of life, it's just saying, hey, or providing that environment where you're saying, if you have an issue, or sometimes just getting to know individuals personally and taking the time to invest in your people can
yeah.
go a long way, because you'll naturally and organically get that information of what's going on just by spending some time with your folks. But in the actual support system, it's really, we're working on a network in Pittsburgh and across the country as well, of developing those business partnerships so
Mm,
that they know that the Alzheimer's Association is there for them
mm.
when they have someone going through this sort of I don't want to say struggle. That's not the right word for it. It's a
The
life
journey,
change.
yeah, life change, yeah,
So
it's good, yeah, yeah,
it's very impactful to everyone that's involved. And caregivers, I mean, for every one caregiver, for every one patient, I should say, there's usually two or three caregivers if you're lucky.
yeah,
Sometimes
yeah,
it's just
right,
one person, and we've seen that in recent news with some of the celebrities that had some crises that happened over the past couple of months. And it's really changed our mindset of how
mm,
we give care. But
yeah,
for those of you that are leading your teams, just being flexible. And I'm glad that
mm,
COVID provided us that flexibility,
sure,
that
yeah,
they could caregive from home, they could work from home. I know it's a struggle, but at the
yeah,
same time, if you have that ability to be flexible, or even if your on-site employees are needing to leave early or come in late to take loved ones to even to daycare,
yeah,
or to a doctor's appointment, then
mm,
just knowing that they're not going to be penalized for something like that, it's
mm,
it's key. The less
Yeah.
fear that we have for losing our jobs, the better off you'll be and the longer you're going to keep your employees. And I know
Yeah.
with this current environment, we don't want to keep losing employees to something that we can address.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think that just, I know that in every leader's mind, turnover is always, top of mind because number one, it
Right?
costs so much. But number two, we don't want to lose great talent. We don't want to lose great leaders on our leadership teams because of something that we could help them with by being flexible or allowing them to have the flexibility in their schedule to to work how they need to. And so yeah, I think that's really important. Well, and I know too, Lynzy, that you and the Alzheimer's Association have a great deal of like educational information
Yes.
and educational programs. Maybe just talk about that a little bit and share with everybody, what kinds of programs that you have.
Absolutely. And it's something that we do remarkably well. I know I'm patting ourselves on the back a
Oh,
little
that's
bit,
great.
but
Pat yourself on
truly
the back. That's great.
our educational programs are second to none.
Really.
And it is at no cost to any employer that
Mm,
wants to explore these options. So
nice.
we have free education that are typically volunteer led, sometimes staff,
Mm,
but we go into in organizations that could be hybrid, in person, virtual, whatever works. We will have basically a discovery meeting with them up front just to get a little bit of the feel for the culture of the organization and the
sure.
needs of the organization so that we can pair the right programming. Now,
Okay.
our two most popular are our 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's
Okay.
and healthy living for your brain. We did rebrand it. I think it's now 10 ways to love your brain. It's something like that, but
Okay.
that's not
Nice. Nice.
my skill set
Sure.
to
Sure.
say the least. But we
Yeah.
have wonderful people that is their skill set that they can deliver these programs for you. Those two
Mm.
programs specifically are really popular lunch and learns.
Oh,
So
nice.
we can
Okay.
deliver those in 30-minute, 45-minute, and
Okay.
I think believe 60-minute as well,
Okay.
presentations for you. So it's really whatever the needs of the organization are. We have other programs as well. It goes even
Yeah.
into the details of managing finances for caregivers
Oh,
among some
nice.
other opportunities for um, more medical based questions or caregiving specific
Mm.
modules. Some of
Okay.
these are available online, but we can
Okay.
obviously give them to whatever organization and tailor it specifically to what we need. Obviously, we know that some usually women are the caregiver,
Mm.
just statistically speaking.
Sure.
So we have done programs that are for women's ERG that we
Mm.
can tailor that information so they know the specifics of the rates of occurrence and things of that nature. But we have an educational program for every need or interest.
No, I love that. I love that. And I think you might have said this, but I don't want to gloss over it. So these education programs can be delivered either virtually or in person. I think you've
Mhm.
got people to be able to come
Absolutely.
to employers. Okay. Okay.
We've delivered programs even within our chapter that were multi-state. So
Okay.
if you have
Cool.
a team that spans across the country or whatever, we can definitely accommodate you.
Oh, that's very cool. Lynzy, why don't you share maybe a little bit about your own journey? I'd love just to, share a little bit about you and, how you got to the Alzheimer's Association and, just a little bit about that growth journey personally. I'd love to hear that.
Sure. So I'm a Pittsburgher, a
Love it.
Yinzer
Yeah,
by trade, and
I
by
love
birth.
it.
But I love this community, and that's one thing that I have really focused on over the course of my life and education is how can I give back to my community, and
Your
that's
community.
something that my
Mm,
mom and my grandfather really instilled in me is if you have the ability to give back or to
yeah.
help someone that you should. So
Mm, mm.
when I was going through school, I picked a major that was fun and I realized that I probably should focus a little bit more. So I shifted and basically ended up in the field of professional fundraising, which
Okay.
made a lot of sense in the grand scheme of life because I am what I call a serial volunteer. My
Mm,
entire life was volunteer projects with my mom and my grandfather. Every basically weekend, we were be delivering Meals on Wheels or doing the Relay for Life or
mm,
anything of that nature. I know I'm plugging some other organizations as well, but
mm.
it's really whatever we could do to fill a need in our community, we would try to help someone else out.
That's good.
So when the opportunities presented itself when I was in college, I interned at a couple different places like St. Jude in Pittsburgh. They have an office there, as well as the Muscular Dystrophy Association, which I ended up
Oh,
getting
good.
hired as a professional fundraiser from my internship and spent a few years there.
That's
But
cool.
my career has been in professional fundraising, and
Mm,
with that comes raising awareness about, especially in the healthcare sector, raising
mm,
awareness about the mission that you support. But really,
mm.
how I ended up at the Alzheimer's Association was COVID had other plans for me, and I was trying to get back into the field of fundraising. And I got an email one day from the local association, and the rest is history. So I've been with the organization for almost 4 years, and it has been probably the most rewarding experience of my
Mm,
life.
that's
So
cool.
just being able to be a part of these individuals' lives and trying to make
Mm,
their life a little bit easier, even though, I'm just a fundraiser, but making sure that they have access because fundraising is one of the most tangible ways that you can fight against these diseases,
yeah.
at least in your own community. So
Yeah.
it's nice to be able to make those connections and build relationships with other businesses as well as meet the individuals that are benefiting from our research that we're investing in. It's truly the best of all worlds.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and just to clarify, we're not just anything because I always just want to remind people that just is a diminishing word. You know, the research that you do and that the even the local association does here in Pittsburgh wouldn't happen without your efforts and without the efforts of the fundraising and the funds that come in through, the walk, and the other kinds of events that you put on. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about two things. Number one, talk about the research because I know that here in Pittsburgh, the research is second to none. And then I do want
Yes,
you to talk a little bit about the fundraising and how people might be able to get involved as well.
absolutely. And I will shout this on any forum or rooftop. You can probably see me at a few of the rooftops later in the summer shouting it literally. But Pittsburgh is positioned in a way that it makes this work even more impactful.
Mm,
So, the University of Pittsburgh is actually the single most Alzheimer's Association funded research lab. So, it's home to that lab
that's
of
cool.
anywhere in the country.
Mm,
So, when we think of what that actually means, it equates to about $2.3 million of research investment that's coming back right to our community and
nice.
about 12 researchers at a single lab. That's why it's the most funded. They
Yeah, yeah.
are doing brilliant things like developing the blood biomarker study that we all heard about last summer in the
Mm,
news when they finished their phase 3 clinical trial, making that more accessible. That if
mm,
people want to know if they carry that gene, especially if they have a family history,
mm,
that we can get that test if especially in Pennsylvania, we have uh, passed legislation that we can actually have access to that when it
wow,
becomes available.
cool.
So we're hoping that that's in the next few years, and
Mm,
they're very promising. But at the same time, we are looking at early diagnostic methods. That is our research hub of information. It's really
good.
pinpointing how we can detect this disease faster and
Mm,
more
mm,
accurately before symptoms ever start. Because the
mm,
best way to combat this disease, we do have really good treatments. They're
mm,
infusion medications, but to get access to those medications it takes time.
mm,
So
mhm.
if we are progressing or we have a loved one that's progressing with the disease, sometimes it gets too far advanced that those medications no longer have any impact
Okay.
overall.
Okay.
But we know, and even there's an individual that I work with whose mother was in the clinical trial for one of our drugs.
Mm.
They spotted it early, and she was able to, she's still living on her own. So this is 9 years later that
Wow.
she can drive on her own in a different state and is
Wow.
working,
Yeah.
and she's basically the poster child of what we want,
Mm.
with all these factors like early intervention and then drug therapies coming together into a nice little package. But by no means are we anywhere close to calling this a cure. We want
Sure.
to emphasize that. This is buying us time and buying us more memories. So
Mm.
we're creating
Yeah.
those memories by creating more time for these individuals that they can still have quality moments with
Mm.
their loved ones. And hopefully, even if they're losing some of their activities of daily living, regain some of those, because we've seen the amyloid plaque buildups in the brain, which is basically the same plaque that develops in our or on our teeth. We've seen it decrease with these medications and early
Wow.
intervention.
Okay.
So there's a
That's
lot
cool.
of hope out there, and I know that we don't
Yeah.
see that all the time, but just be to know that that is happening with those early diagnostics tools right here in Pittsburgh,
Mm.
and it's in our own backyard. And with the walk and our other fundraising opportunities, especially the walk, it's the single largest funder of also a fundraising event for Alzheimer's and dementia related research. Knowing that the fundraising that we do here in Pittsburgh stays in Pittsburgh is
Mm.
pretty
Yeah.
cool.
That is cool. Yeah, that is cool. Well, and I know that we have listeners from quite literally around the world, and I'd love to maybe just give them insights on maybe how could they access. I mean, is Alzheimer's Association? Are there other chapters outside of the U.S. or is it just strictly here in the U.S.? That's something I don't even know. I don't think you and I even talked about that when we had coffee.
No, we didn't, but we do have some sister sites all
Okay.
through the entire country, entire world.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
you can go on our website, alz.org is your best
Okay.
resource if you want to find out information if you are in another country, or reach out to your local Alzheimer's or dementia charities that are nearby.
Mm,
There, I'm sure, because it affects so many people, that you're going to be able to just simply find one online,
sure.
and get more involved in your local communities. But we do share research across the globe,
Mm,
as what we're one the leading nonprofit in Alzheimer's disease research in the entire world. So
nice.
we're heavily involved with influencing other countries as well.
Very
But
cool.
just if you need to get more involved or you want to get more involved, just search for those local opportunities, and I'm sure that our name's probably going to pop up with those as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's awesome. Well, you talked about hope, and I think that so oftentimes when somebody hears, Alzheimer's, it can be a devastating diagnosis. But talk a little bit about like the hope that comes from that early intervention and that early diagnosis, or yeah, diagnosis and intervention. Like, how can people get a what does that entail? But then B, how do people get access to that, especially if they're outside of like Pennsylvania?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a journey. I know we said that earlier,
Yeah,
and I don't want to diminish the emotional quotient here.
right,
It is
right.
de at its root, it's a devastating disease,
Mm-hmm.
and it is not just for the person that is diagnosed with it, it is for
Yeah,
the caregiver as well.
family.
It
Yeah,
alters your life, your finances, everything.
yeah,
So it is the single most devastating disease to fight financially, at least in the United States,
sure.
because of longevity with this.
Mm,
People can live a very long time with Alzheimer's. And
yeah.
unfortunately, that's where the cost of care gets involved. And then it becomes an economics problem,
Mm,
especially for families that maybe don't have the access to the care that they deserve or have the funds to fund it. But when we are thinking through what hope looks like, well,
mm,
obviously we want that first survivor. We
yeah,
if you can see the flowers behind me, these are our promise garden that we have at our walks across the country. There are more than 600 walks. So if
cool.
you're out there, find one. There's probably
Yeah.
one in your neighborhood. There's one single white flower that'll be at every event, and that represents the hope of our first survivor.
Mm.
So when you
Cool.
think through these advances that we're making, even in the 4 years that I've been with the Alzheimer's Association, I came on when the first drug was in the FDA approval process. That
Wow.
was 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Before then, we only had one drug that was widely prescribed, and it
Mm.
didn't even address the root of the problem. It was
Oh, wow.
symptom management at its best.
Mm.
And I'm not going to get any further because I'm not a doctor and I'm not a scientist. So
Sure,
I'll,
sure,
I'll
sure,
move on. But
sure.
the amount of progress that we have seen in the last 20 to 30 years with this
Wow.
disease is truly remarkable. And it's not just this disease. If you can look at other life-threatening diseases across the board, the
Mm.
survivability rates have dramatically increased with a lot of these. And it's because of the investment we made
Mm.
with fundraising and raising more awareness back then. It's
Mm-hmm.
now coming to fruition, that investment. So when we have a newly diagnosed family that calls our association or calls our helpline, which I wanted to plug as well,
Yes, absolutely.
our 800 number that is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. A master's level clinician will pick up the phone
Uh,
for any reason. So it
that's
could
great.
be a question about how do I get connected to my nearest walked-in Alzheimer's, and that's easy. They'll send you to me if you're in Pittsburgh or whoever else, if wherever you are. But if it's a care question, they can actually walk you through it. We've had individuals that have called at 2 o'clock in the morning because their loved one just was having trouble
Mm.
understanding that their bed was their bed.
Oh, wow.
And that
Yeah.
stress on the caregiver, just knowing that they can pick up the phone and have someone that can help with that,
Mm-hmm.
it's key. But we also don't want to lose sight of the big picture. And ultimately, we want that first survivor. So we have to really invest in our communities and invest our employees and our thought process behind how do we fight this? It
Mm.
is a
Yeah.
growing problem. So how do we
Mm.
provide resources to our clients or provide resources to our friends and family? Like the most common statement I get is, I wish I knew then what I know now. And
Sure.
I'll attest to it too. With our personal journey with this disease with my grandfather, it I didn't even know that there was an Alzheimer's Association in Pittsburgh.
Wow. Okay.
So
Yeah.
knowing what we could have had and having that
Mm.
support system, a lot of the people we work with become our family. It's our
Mm.
extended family.
Yeah.
I get phone calls or text messages or pictures or anything about
Mm.
with our loved ones that these individuals volunteering with our association or benefiting from something. It's truly, that is where the hope is. It's in the
Yeah.
connection. It's
Yeah.
it's in the support system.
Yeah.
I mean, the icing on the cake is the drug therapies and the early diagnostics, but just knowing, because this is a disease, it's so socially isolated,
Yeah.
and it pulls those caregivers home, and it pulls every resource available until it just takes and takes and takes.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
knowing that the Alzheimer's Association and our network of business partners or volunteers or anything is there for you
Mm-hmm.
at any point
Yeah.
in this disease, it's truly life changing. And I know
Yeah.
that it sounds cheesy coming from me because I work for the association, but
Yeah.
just hearing these stories every single day of
Mm-hmm.
how someone's life was just a little bit easier because they could pick up the phone and know that they could talk to someone who got what they were going through, or hearing that an employer changed a policy that they could be
Yeah.
more flexible. Like that's a
Yeah.
win. They
That's a,
might seem
yeah.
small, but
No, it's a huge
everything
win.
adds up, and every little detail that you can help these individuals that are caregiving or living with the disease just feel normal.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
is the hope.
I love that, Lynzy. Before we get away from it, what is the 800 number? I want to make sure we'll put it in the show notes as well, but what is the 800 number for the
Yes, it's
helpline?
800-272-3900.
1-800-272-3900.
We call it our helpline. It is not
Help
a hotline, it's a helpline.
Helpline. I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, that's really great. Well, I think to me, one of the things that as you were talking about the impact that this disease has in in kind of a ripple effect with not only just the caregiver, the employer. I mean, to me, it brings up, I guess, the idea and the thought that employers need to be not only willing to help their people adjust schedules and things like that, but I think there's also an element of like financial management and financial wellness and financial awareness that they can help their employees to just even prepare for an eventuality if it were to occur, because I think being prepared at least a little bit financially, even if you're not diagnosed, it's just the awareness of it and having something in place in case. I mean, 1 in 6, I mean, that's a fairly high odd, and I would want to make sure that if I'm have a number of employees, I want to do everything that I can to help them to be in the best position that they can be.
Yeah, and we do have some educational programs that are geared more towards finance. We have nationwide partnerships with organizations like Edward Jones and
Oh, good.
different companies. They're our national presenting sponsor of the Walk to End Alzheimer's,
Nice.
but we're taking this really seriously. And
Mm.
the two things people don't want to talk about are health problems and money, right?
Right,
And
right.
they
Yeah,
go hand in hand all the
they
time.
do. Yeah, they do.
But if you can provide your staff or your clients or anything with that opportunity to learn more about how to safeguard your assets, I have seen too many times, and even with a short span in the insurance industry, between some fundraising things professionally, it is horrendous to
Yeah.
to know that you've built your life and you get reduced sometimes to absolutely nothing, and
Mm.
basically the family comes with it as well. And speaking from personal experience, my grandfather lived for a long time with his
Mm.
dementia. We believe was vascular dementia,
Mm.
but he worked his whole life. He was a lab chemist,
Okay.
and
Wow.
he could do mental math like no one's business, made fun of me constantly because I can't do mental math. It is not a superpower of mine.
Sure.
But when he started losing that ability to do that math and came to us crying that his checkbook didn't balance,
Oh, wow.
well, that was a big red flag for us.
Sure.
So when my mom's actually in finance, and
Mm.
this is her dad, and she's trying to help, there's no money left. Everything
Wow.
was cashed. It
Mm.
was
Mm.
when you're making decisions and you're not fully understanding what you're making those decisions, but you're
Yeah.
so able to kind of hide that you're having a problem, which is very common with
Sure.
individuals with early dementia or
Mm.
Alzheimer's. It's really hard for the family to catch up, especially if it's that
Mm.
person that maybe you don't see them every day, or they have just been that person that takes care of everything. Like my
Right.
my grandfather did everything. My grandmother never wrote a check out in her life, never, had to work or anything. He took care
Mm.
of all that. And so she could take care of the kids. And that was the
Mm.
deal.
Yeah.
But they didn't have long-term care insurance. They
Yeah.
he gave a lot of things away because he was just that humanitarian and
Sure.
altruistic individual that he wanted to help anyone he could.
Mm.
But that gets you into trouble when you don't think long term with how you're going
Yes.
to care for yourself.
Yeah.
So having that advisor, and obviously we're not going to make any suggestions necessarily because I'm not a
Yeah.
financial advisor, but
Right.
get one. If you're
Yeah, for
concerned,
sure.
go to
Yeah.
the professionals. We can do the basic education for your organization if you would like us to partner with different financial institutions that we do have
Mm.
licensed individuals that can help you with that. But just being able to understand, okay, well, maybe we need to focus this a little bit more with some employee education for our
Mm.
workplace initiatives, just to have workshops available or
Yeah.
to be flexible for appointments that, a lot of the time we set these things up way too late and it costs us a lot more money.
Mm.
Um, or we see that the finances are drained and then we have to start working with their next of kin or their
Yeah.
caregiver, unfortunately, that may not be able to. I mean, the cost of care is ridiculous in the United
Yeah.
States right now for any disease, let alone an individual that, you've had to eliminate their house or put them
Hmm.
in a facility, depending on the needs of the individual. And then it's like, now what?
Right,
How
right.
do we help? My mom was at the height of her career and left her career to
Mm.
take care of my grandfather until it got to be too much.
Wow.
And after that, caregiving is hard. It
Yeah.
takes a
Oh,
lot out
yeah.
of individuals.
Yeah.
So she was not only financially responsible, now she has her physical needs that obviously were put to the side with health and everything because we're so focused on that individual that needs care
Yeah.
that when that person passes, which are we lost my grandfather last year to
Mm.
dementia, when that person is gone, there's a lot left that you don't
Yeah.
think about where it's okay, you still have the financial problem. You still have, do you go back to work? Are you able to go back to work
Hmm.
physically, mentally? It's exhausting for these individuals. And seeing it from really helps us be able to help others at the association.
Yeah.
But knowing that as a is key in the business industry because, some people might have bad days because they just can't leave it at home or they
Right.
keep getting phone calls and it ruins their focus or
Yeah.
anything along those nature. We just don't think about it until
Hmm.
we're in that situation, and unfortunately by then it's too late. So
Yeah.
having those educational resources up front and being more astute to what you can offer in benefits packages and things of that nature to help safeguard
Hmm.
your employees in the long run is it's truly key, and it is a way of keeping talent. I know my benefits
Yeah.
package is awesome at the
Yes.
Alzheimer's Association
That's great.
because we know what happens when we don't have these things in place.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind, and especially for you
Love it.
younger listeners out there,
Yeah.
because even if you're under 30, you still should probably have something in place.
Right.
Um, you never know.
Right.
It's truly we could be here one day and gone the next, and what do we do for our families to make sure that they're protected? Um, in
Hmm.
any way, it doesn't just have to be the life insurance piece. There's a lot
Yeah.
to it that you need to talk about with a professional and with your family.
Yeah, no, that's so good, Lindsay. Well, I want to talk a little bit about how people can get involved and how businesses can get involved in sponsoring, the walk, maybe there or other events. I know about the walk because you and I talked about that, and I know I here in Pittsburgh, I know it's in October. I don't know if it's that nationally or not, but I know it's in October. How do people get involved? How do businesses get involved? How can they maybe sponsor, especially here in the Pittsburgh region, because I know we do have a lot of listeners here locally. But then I know we also have listeners, across the country as well. So I'd love to get them involved in their local area as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is my favorite question. So there's so many ways that you can get involved. It's not just the walk, and the walk is our most visible. So
Sure.
it's our largest fundraiser for, like I said earlier, for Alzheimer's and dementia research in the world. So the
Mm,
walk is where we spend a lot of our time, and that is my overall job at the association to make sure that Pittsburgh Walk is phenomenal.
love it.
So, but let's dive into what the other side of these, and I'll end on the walk.
Cool.
But you can get involved in many different ways. If you're passionate about public policy, we need advocates, and we will train you to
Nice.
even write open letters to
Cool.
your newspapers or go to local lawmakers and have meetings with them if you're truly passionate about something like that, because we know that we can only affect 100% of the population with
Mm,
public policy changes. So we
yeah.
have a team locally that's dedicated and across the state, and every chapter of the association has all of these things. So don't think that
Okay.
it's just limited to Pittsburgh.
Great.
But if that's something that you're interested in and that's a passion of yours, then obviously you can that 800 the helpline, you can get connected with any of us across the country from that helpline. If you are interested in education and want to be a community educator or awareness champion, we can obviously train you for that as well. So whether it's hosting a lunch and learn or learning how to deliver more awareness in your local community or with your church or whatever community groups you're involved in, we can do that. Give us a call and we'll connect you to our programs and services team who love this. We also have support groups across the country as well. So
Nice.
if you are a caregiver or you are living with the disease, I know in the Pittsburgh area we have several, and the surrounding communities as well. Whether those are virtual or in person, it's nice to know that you have individuals that you can lean on for support. So definitely check out our website or give a call to our helpline, and we can connect you with someone for that. Um, we also are very focused on the minority community. So if
Nice.
obviously
That's good.
Pittsburgh, we are invested in the African American community. There's an African American Community Summit on dementia that's coming up in June. There's tons of those across the country. It's not just in that community, it's any specified area. So just again, our website, phenomenal. So check it
Good.
out.
Love it.
And then we also have the research presentations we can give. So if you want something that's specific, or if maybe you're in the more medical side of life and you would like those specific individuals, there is a research champion in every chapter across the country. But we make this all possible because of the fundraising.
Mm.
So we are a
Yeah.
volunteer-led organization, and we're very proud of that. We are the #2 peer-to-peer fundraising organization in the country.
Oh,
So
cool.
again, very proud of that. But the walk itself, and I'll hit on a couple other areas. If maybe a big crowd isn't your thing, the TLD, so the longest day, we lovingly refer to it as TLD, is
Okay.
basically a DIY fundraising opportunity that you bring your passion to life and bring us to your community instead of
Oh,
finding
cool.
a walk that's in your community. It's kind of the
Okay.
reverse. So it's making that special and specified to what you like to do.
Oh,
Um,
neat.
there's also the marathon. If you happen to be a marathon runner, we have
Sure.
all stars across the country. So just look into that if you do that
Cool.
anyway, or are an aspiring runner. And then we
Mhm.
also have some professional women's networking. It's called Rivals to End Alls, which is basically a football game for women, flag football. That is a fundraiser and a nice networking opportunity, but it's a lot of fun. So those
Very
are
cool.
obviously a lot of different options for fundraising and different
Yeah.
programs to get involved with. But the walk being our single largest, and in Pittsburgh, we're actually nationally ranked as the #26 walk in the country. This has been a long time coming. Pittsburgh's back on the map, and
Love it.
rightfully
Love it.
so with the research.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
if you want to get involved with the Pittsburgh Walk, there are multiple ways to do that. You can have a walk team at your company or a friends and family. Really, we can work with any type of team across the board.
Mm.
We have a valuable resource of coaches within our volunteer leadership team. If you're a business that you would like to get more involved, we can have company-based walk teams. We can have sponsorship opportunities. So obviously the branding is available if you would like to see your logo at any of our walks, but we really create customized partnerships that include all of the things that we talked about earlier with education support. We
Mm.
can build that all into a custom plan for you. So you're really getting exactly what you would want out of a relationship with a charity like the Alzheimer's Association. So we spend a lot of time listening and then solution searching and finding. So
Yeah.
we'll work with you to really create that mutually beneficial partnership across the board. But there are also within the walk, if you just want to volunteer the day of an
Mm.
event, that is also an
Yeah.
opportunity. It's a great team building experience for having a walk team or having a volunteer team. So lots
That's
of
great.
opportunities throughout the year as well. We have many events that lead up to the walk. Like we just had our volunteer kickoff last week. We had about 70 people in Pittsburgh that came to enhance
Nice.
their volunteerism efforts. And that actually goes even into leadership. So we have local, like an executive leadership team for the Pittsburgh Walk and at each walk across the country. We have engagement, which is like motivating individuals to, those are the coaches that help fundraising and set goals and make sure everyone's as successful as they can be and feels like they're making that impact that they want to. And then the experience committee itself is more about event planning and having that good overall experience that keeps people coming back and going to that promise garden that's behind me every single year, and
Yeah.
throughout the year with the other events as well. But all of that, this is a Super Bowl of what we do with the walk.
That's
And I
great.
know that
Yeah.
I'm bogarting this a little bit, but
No, that's
the
great.
Walk to End
It's
Alzheimer's
awesome.
program is phenomenal.
Mm,
We can do so much with it. And just knowing, I like to share the statistic for Pittsburgh specifically.
yeah.
About 80% of our fundraising, it is from friends and family based teams. Can you
Oh, okay.
imagine what we could accomplish if we had more business support in the Pittsburgh community? And this goes for every
Mhm.
community across the board because it's very
Yeah.
similar stats with different locations. But just imagine what people would feel if the business community united around them, because these individuals are in the
Yeah.
trenches every single day, living with their loved
Yeah.
ones and dealing with this in some capacity. Just to know that it's like,
Mm,
hey, we have your back, and we're going to make sure
right.
that we take care of this issue as well.
Mm,
It's just truly a rewarding experience, and
love that.
the largest support group that we have is that
Mm,
Pittsburgh walk. So it's really an interesting opportunity for companies to truly get their hands on something.
mm.
Not to diminish the other fundraising opportunities, but this one, there's just something special about it as well that unites the community, even to the point where we have a Hallmark movie that was made about the Pittsburgh walk
Oh,
specifically.
wow. That's great.
That
I
was
didn't know
released
that.
last fall. So
Oh, that's great,
it's
Lindsay.
really a neat opportunity, and I hope this inspires more people to get involved.
Yeah, I do too. As just as I was listening to all of the ways that leaders, companies, people can get involved. One of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is I wanted to be able to highlight your organization and the work that you do. I mean, you and I just met not too long ago, but I can hear the passion in your voice and I can hear the passion in the work that you do. And I wanted to be able to just challenge our listeners to radical generosity, whether it's with your money, whether it's with your time, volunteering, whatever it may be. I just want to encourage you to get outside of your comfort zone, get into that growth space, and really dive in and participate in some way, whether it's with the walk, whether it's a sponsorship, whatever it might be. Certainly, if you're here in the Pittsburgh region or the Western Pennsylvania region, you can contact Lynzy, and in a minute, I'll make sure that we, get where people can contact you. And if you're outside of the Pittsburgh area, I know that you go onto the website and you can find your local association. And I know that they would be delighted to have you get in contact with them about sponsorships or just getting involved in some way. So, Lynzy, it has been a delight to have you here. And thank you for raising an awareness of this issue, this disease, and the work that the Alzheimer's Association is doing, because it's great to be able to have an awareness, because so oftentimes we if we're not hearing it somewhere, it's easy just to let it go under the radar, or there's so many distractions that we all have. And I wanted to be able to just raise the awareness to the disease, to the Alzheimer's Association, and how businesses and leaders who might be listening can get involved. So, with that in mind, how do people get in touch with you? What's the best way to get in touch with you and contact you?
So again, our alz.org, if you're not in Pittsburgh, or even if you are, that'll source you to the right location for your local staff. If you would like to check out our website, it's act.alz, as in Alzheimer's.org. So act.alz.org/Pittsburgh. That is the Walked in Alzheimer's in Pittsburgh's main website, which has all my contact information listed.
Great.
You can even book appointments with me to talk a little bit more about strategy and coaching, among other things. Just getting started, whatever we can do for you, all that information is available. And don't feel afraid to reach out. We will find something for everyone. This disease impacts across the board in many different ways. And
Mm,
just knowing that we can find the right fit for you, it's not as, I don't
mm,
think it's as scary for especially businesses to get involved, or it's not
yeah.
as time consuming either. Just we will find your niche and we will
Mm.
help you, we'll help you make the most impact that you possibly can or want to make.
I love that, Lynzy. We'll make sure that we put all of that contact information in the show notes. So if you're driving, if you're walking, working out, riding a bike, whatever you're doing right now, you can always go to the show notes in your podcast app, and those links, those websites will be there. And Lynzy, thank you for being here. One last thing? Is there anything that we haven't covered today that would be helpful for our listeners?
Well, there is, if you want to get more involved with trials, clinical trials, especially if you're from minority communities, it
Okay.
is not as difficult as it seems. So
Okay.
we have a trial match program that is available at alz.org/trial match, and we can put that in the show notes as well. But
Sure.
if
Yeah.
you would like or to contribute to some of these research programs across the country, whether it's just collecting data, I mean, that's all helpful for
Yeah.
researchers across the board, or participating in a clinical trial. Some are in person, some are just virtual, whatever works for you. Just know that not only fundraising is a way to be more tangible in this fight, you can actually participate and be an answer or solution to these
Mm,
research questions that we are asked every single day. So multiple ways that
nice.
you can impact this fight.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Lynzy. Thanks for raising our awareness. Thanks for the work that you're doing. And let me just close by asking those who are listening, get involved. I just want to encourage you, get outside of your comfort zone, get into your own growth space, get involved somehow, some way, and participate. And we will hopefully one day see Alzheimer's come to an end through your work, Lynzy, as well as the entire Alzheimer's Association. So, thanks for being here. I really appreciate you raising the awareness today.
Thank you so much. We hope to be put out of business eventually. So help us be a part of that
Absolutely.
solution. We appreciate it. And
Right
thanks for having me
on.
today.
You got it.